The alien commander's head exploded in a shower of viscera, as Fleet Commander Adrian Cole's powered titanium gauntlet smashed through its skull, a fury the galaxy had never witnessed. Adrian surveyed the smoldering ruins of the Ceres mining colony, rage boiling inside him. The valiant miners had been slaughtered by the ruthless Ziffer invaders. His brother Neil was among the captured, facing unimaginable torment. Adrian turned to the shaken miners, steeling their nerves for a desperate pursuit. Humanity's very survival now rested on their shoulders. They had no idea if their ragtag force could face the vast Ziffer armada. But they had no choice. Adrian would tear the galaxy apart to rescue his brother. The Ziffer had no concept of the hell they had brought upon themselves. Adrian and his battleship would show them why you never, ever anger humanity. Adrian grabbed the Ziffer's neck, pinning it to the cold metal wall. His other hand held a jagged metal shard, ripped from the broken controls. He stared into the alien's wide, fear-filled eyes. Its chest rose and fell fast, breath rasping, fear thick in the air. "Where's the mothership headed?" Adrian's voice rumbled gutturally in the tight bridge. The Ziffer clicked its mouthparts, trying to spin lies. Adrian pressed the shard to its throat. Blue blood trickled where the sharp edge bit flesh. "Zeta Reticuli," it finally hissed, defeated. "For the harvest." A cold shiver ran Adrian's spine. He nodded to his team, faces hardened by loss and fury as they manned the consoles. They had boarded silently, efficiently, taking the scout ship. Battle-worn uniforms showed their resolve. "Set course," Adrian ordered. A team member pulled up star charts on the alien controls. They slipped away, the scout now a Trojan horse for humanity's hope. Adrian watched stars blur into lines as they sped up. "Ziffer patrols incoming," the pilot murmured, hands steady. "Match their signatures, act natural," Adrian responded, eyes fixed outside. They wove between patrols, skirting detection, blending in. Adrian tensed at each close call, but held firm, trusting his crew. An alarm suddenly trilled, searching for human warmth. Cold pulses from the ship countered, mimicking lifeless space. The team worked in sync, focused and precise. Time bent around their urgent mission. Zeta Reticuli bloomed into view, the mothership's monstrous silhouette, eclipsing the distant sun. Adrian felt the weight of their task, galvanizing his spirit. They approached disguising routine, a scout returning to the hive, the chance to strike, to save lives, to avenge losses. On Ceres, Lieutenant Sarah Kim watched the mining colony. The Terran Vengeance's guns stood sentinel, her crew fortifying in the ruins. Hammer strikes echoed defiance as they welded barriers and gun nests. Sarah's orders were clear: hold the line, secure the future, hope for Adrian, hope for humanity's revenge. The scout ship docked whisper quiet. Adrian led his team through the hatch, weapons ready, resolve iron strong. Why humans are never to be angered, a lesson Adrian Cole intended to teach. The ship controls were foreign. Strange beeps and symbols covered them. But we started figuring them out. Maria's fingers flew over the controls. She typed in codes we stole. One wrong move would make us stick out, but we had to take the chance. For the miners, for Neil, for all humans. "Sensors say we're still unseen," Maria said sharply. Her eyes stayed on the screens, searching for problems. In the dim light, James worked to match our ship's signals with the other Ziffer ships. His hands moved precisely, patching in stolen tech to hide our human signatures. We were ghosts among the living. "We need to talk like them too," I said. Their language was hard clicks and buzzes. For hours we listened, repeated, practiced, until we sounded just like them. No mistakes allowed. I looked at Jonas. He nodded our quiet signal. We were set to hack their network. Sweat shone on his forehead as he started the secret break-in, invading their communication veins. The link worked. We were in. Relief filled the cramped ship. Then we heard them. Jumbled Ziffer voices talking about a planet, a dig, our people alive, tools for their evil plan. Anger burned, but we kept control. We knew what to do. We would board the mothership, free Neil and the others from their claws, and make the Ziffer regret ever touching our kind. "Adrian," James whispered, getting my attention. "They're holding them on the planet below. We've got the coordinates." My jaw tightened with resolve. We hit them where they don't expect, straight into the mothership. Get ready for a fight that'll shake the stars. The crew's nods were all I needed. They knew the stakes, every breath, every heartbeat together. Full disguise now, I ordered. Maria flipped switches. James turned knobs. Jonas punched keys. We became the enemy, at least to their sensors and patrols. There it was. The mothership loomed ahead, huge, armed to the teeth, a monster of war and death. But inside, our own, trapped, waiting for rescue, waiting for us. Stay calm. Act like you belong, I whispered. We do this for humanity, for our brothers and sisters in chains. The scout ship slid into the mothership's hangar, silent as space itself. We moved out, weapons hidden, hearts pounding. Every step showed human strength. This was why humans should never be crossed. The Ziffer ship vibrated with life. Boots hammered the metal floors as Adrian led the team down a cramped hallway. Pipes and wires lined the walls, humming with power. The team wore stolen Ziffer armor to hide their human bodies. Maria's eyes met Adrian's, communicating silently. They had penetrated deep into the Ziffer base. They passed Ziffer soldiers, massive in size compared to the humans. The aliens ignored the disguised team. Adrian's hand hovered near his hidden gun, ready to draw. They turned deeper into the ship, closer to the core where the prisoners worked. Heat grew heavy. The stench of molten metal and sweat filled the stale air. Hammer strikes and muffled cries echoed ahead, the sound of their captured people. They entered the overlook unnoticed. Below, humans chipped at rock with crude tools. Harsh lights bathed the cavernous dig site. Adrian's fists tightened at the sight of the exhausted prisoners. Neil was among them. Jonas directed Adrian's gaze to two angry Ziffer officers, mandibles clicking rapidly. Adrian understood enough of their language. They disagreed about an ancient weapon buried below. This was the tool they forced the humans to unearth. Rage brewed in Adrian, but he kept it controlled. This went beyond a simple rescue. It was about stopping a power that could destabilize the galaxy. The group slipped away to regroup out of sight. Adrian spoke firmly but quietly. We know where they are. We need to free them and end this dig. Maria nodded, eyes fierce. We'll need a distraction. I can cause a grid failure, draw the guards away, James said, holding a stolen control device. Their planning halted as a patrol passed by. The Ziffer remained oblivious to the infiltrating humans. James worked the stolen tech in steady hands. Alarms blared, lights flickered erratically. Ziffer scrambled to respond. This was the opening needed. Adrian's team quickly made their way to the dig site, blending into the chaotic herd. They descended unseen, finding the weary prisoners. At the sight of the team, hope and strength filled the miners. Tools became weapons. The Ziffer control slipped away. In the turmoil, the humans planted explosives unnoticed. Adrian led his brother and the others back through the ship corridors. A blast shook the ship as they reached the exit. The excavation was destroyed, buried deep under stone and debris. The ancient weapon would remain lost. They had made it back to the scout ship, free and ready to return home. Adrian watched the Ziffer ship fade into the distance, a reminder of human resilience. The Ziffer had learned that angering humans brings severe consequences. Adrian and his crew would ensure the lesson stuck. The mothership hummed with a dangerous rhythm. Inside, Adrian and his team hid in the gloom. Only the faint glow of the alien screen lit the room. Maria's fingers darted skillfully across the controls. "Virus is set," she whispered. The words were almost lost under the hum, but they held a huge weight. The virus would throw the ship into turmoil. Each line of code poisoned more systems, built by oppressed hands for destruction. Adrian watched over Maria's shoulder. She loaded the program onto a small pad. It looked ordinary, but its contents would kill the mothership's systems. Jonas's comm beeped with a coded message from the human miners below. Jonas's brow furrowed as he decoded it. "They've got explosives," he told Adrian. His voice was steady, but his eyes blazed with fear and hope. Adrian nodded, thinking fast. A new plan formed. Timing was everything. "We use the virus to blow their systems," Adrian said. His eyes pierced the gloom and met each one. "Then we get to the mines. We trigger the explosives with Neil and the others. It's our shot to hit them inside and out. The team understood the stakes. The coming storm. The silent tremor before the quake. Silent communication passed between them. Nods. Gestures that said everything. The Ziffer came closer to unearthing the buried tech that could not fall into their claws. In stolen armor, they blended with the hive of activity. James carried the virus pad, cold metal, so ordinary-looking. They reached the core, cavernous room of screens and consoles. Ziffer operators worked diligently, unaware of the danger among them. Maria gave the signal with a brush of her hand. James stepped forward, practiced and natural. He slotted the pad into the main console. A perfect fit. The virus exploded into the systems. Screens flickered, alarms wailed. Ziffer scrambled in confusion, chattering in their strange tongue. Routines shattered. The team slipped away unseen. They became shadows and whispers. Adrian's pulse raced as they boarded a small craft. Engines firing up without notice, needle diving for the Ziffer heart below. The mine sprawled like an open wound. Adrian saw the moving figures, dragging tools, unbroken. His team was ready, unseen. As they landed and exited, a miner caught Adrian's eye. Silent recognition, readiness, weary but unbroken, ready to rise. The team moved among them with purpose, whispered instructions, shared glances of hope and rebellion. The miners gripped tools, ready to turn them against captors. Above, the crippled mothership loomed, below its fate sealed by the hands it sought to control. At Adrian's silent nod, it began. Explosions tore through the rubble. Ziffer screams and mine collapse roared as one, the symphony of their destruction. Excavation halted. The humans moved through the chaos. Chains shattered, fleeing with Adrian's team to the transport, leaving the crippled Ziffer operation and ancient power unclaimed. Adrian looked back as they ascended. Stark testament to human resolve. They had struck a resonant blow. Sci-Fi had underestimated them, a fatal error. Adrian made sure of it. The ear-splitting alarm screamed through the Ziffer mothership. The screens flashed angry red warning signs. Adrian's team felt excited because their stolen uniforms had masked them. The virus they unleashed paralyzed the enemy ship, leaving doors unguarded and halls dim. Adrian led the silent but fast charge, their steps quiet on the metal floor. Each turn brought them closer to the cells. The virus hid them from sensors, but not from eyes. They had to stay focused. They were shadows on a hunt for freedom. The cell block was pure mayhem. The guards grabbed their heads in confusion, useless screens and dead comms surrounding them. The prisoners were confused by the chaos, but ready to get out. The team blasted the locks and opened the doors. Neil was the last one out, sharing a meaningful look with his brother Adrian. They had to move fast. Adrian led the ragtag crew of former miners, now soldiers, towards the ship bay. Noise rang out behind them, the sound of a trap closing in. The rebel Ziffer knew and wanted their human tools back. Adrian's group ran into the massive bay, filled with ships for conquest. They picked the nearest armored carrier and boarded. As the miners climbed in, his soldiers guarded the entrance, ready to fight back. Ziffer warriors charged into the bay, firing and dodging in a deadly dance. Humans took cover behind crates, shooting back with skill from their first stand on Ceres. This time, they stood as equals in the fight. Adrian remained strong with his crew, protecting the miners as they prepared for launch. Maria worked frantically at the controls. The Ziffer closed in, but were no match for the defenders' resolve. The ship's engines roared to life, drowning out the screams and shots. "Go!" Adrian yelled over the noise. His team retreated to the ship, leaving stunned Ziffer behind. The ramp slammed shut with a metallic bang. Adrian joined Maria in the cockpit. The ship tore away from the mothership's grip. Enemy fire pelted the shields, but the ship held. Adrian gripped the console, glancing at Neil, then the view screen. They had made it. The mothership faded behind them, lost in its own chaos. Their escape sliced through space, a sign of human strength. This was the day humans showed the galaxy why they should never be tested. The cockpit shook as projectiles flew past. Adrian gripped the controls, maneuvering sharply. "Send that distress call now," he ordered Maria. Her fingers pounded the console, desperately signaling for help. The carrier shuddered as a shot grazed the shields. Sparks lit the tense crew. Explosions rumbled below, the miners at work. The planet itself shook with their blasts. Adrian dove the ship toward the excavation. Blinding fire filled the viewport as his gunner obliterated a Ziffer cruiser. "They got the signal!" Maria shouted over alarms. "Help is coming!" The ancient site crumbled under the bombardment. Ziffer fighters attacked in waves, sloppy with fear. But Adrian's crew was ready. James's guns ripped through a dive-bombing jet. It erupted and crashed below. They wove through blasts and wrecks. The ground cracked from the miners' bombs. A hit rocked the console and shields. 20% left, Maria reported. "Prep for drill echo," Adrian ordered. He spiraled low, skimming the surface, dodging enemy shots. Proximity alarms screamed as Ziffer pilots risked close passes, trying to clip their wings. But Adrian was stubborn, clinging to life. The planet was flying apart. Escape was closing. "Any word?" Adrian asked hoarsely. "Not yet," Maria replied. Adrian weighed each life aboard. He refused to let them become space debris. "We can't wait. Punch through the atmosphere," he decided. The crew steeled themselves. Their bullet of a ship charged on as the planet crumbled behind. Stars appeared as they escaped the atmosphere. The battered hull groaned. Adrian pushed harder. Finally static. Vengeance responding. "Hold on, we're almost there." Adrian didn't smile, but relief flooded him. Just a little longer. Survive a bit more. Fight a little harder. Never anger humans. The ground heaved underneath their feet. A miner panicked, eyes wide with fear. He slammed the detonator too soon. Charges erupted deep in the planet's guts. The first blast was deep and rumbled through the tunnels. More blasts followed, rock bucked. Machines screamed in protest, gears grinding. Dust clouds spewed in all directions. Above, enemy ships swarmed angrily, but the planet's turmoil tossed them wildly. Ships broke formation, some colliding, others spinning off course as pilots fought to regain control. Adrian saw it all through the cockpit window. An enemy ship exploded into a fireball. He grabbed the throttle with bulging veins in his forearms. Eyes darted to the gauges. "Hold it together," he urged the groaning ship. Flames licked the hull, but his grip stayed firm, fingers white. The former miners, now passengers, clung to anything stable. A woman braced against a bulkhead. A man gripped his seat so hard his knuckles turned bone white. Behind them, the planet heaved violently. An enemy ship veered too close and shattered against a plume of rock and fire. Maria's shout cut through the chaos. "Engines redlining!" "Push it!" Adrian commanded firmly. "Get us clear!" She nodded once, resolute, and shoved the power lever forward. The ship groaned in protest, straining every bolt. Gauges climbed. The hull rattled dangerously. Escape hung by a thread. The viewscreen filled with the planet's violent death throes. No time to watch. Every second meant life or death. Through the chaos, an opening appeared. Adrian saw it, a sliver of safety. He aimed the ship at it. Engines screamed in effort. He ignored the heat, the tremors, the warnings. "Come on," he urged the straining ship, voice rough with determination. Space opened up. Cold, black, calm. The shaking eased. The roar faded. They were free. The crew exhaled together in relief and disbelief. The planet shrank behind them, breaking apart with a final violent burst. On the screens, enemy ships scrambled away from the dying planet. Neil and Adrian locked eyes. A nod passed between them, wordless. They'd survived, together, as humans do. Adrian's battered ship limped through the barrage, dodging debris and shooting back. The engines screamed, alarms blared danger. Easy prey out here. "Where are they?" Adrian yelled over the noise, hands locked on the controls. Maria scanned the flickering screens. Signals out. They have to come. A shadow blotted the stars overhead. The miners froze, clothes wet with sweat and fear. Eyes up. "Vengeance here, hold on." Sarah's voice crackled through the radio. The newcomer fired a protective barrage, pounding the pursuit. Adrian's ragged ship edged toward the Terran Vengeance. "Get ready to dock, it'll be tight," Adrian said. The Vengeance's bay doors opened wide, ready to swallow them from the battle. Adrian eased the battered ship into alignment. A perfect entry despite the shaky hands and wild readings. Metal clanged as magnetic locks sealed them in. Everyone breathed deep. The ships, the crews, the rescued miners. Relief spread fast, though their chests heaved from more than exertion. They survived. The miners watched through the windows as the Vengeance's guns blazed. Their battered ship was safe now. More than metal and firepower. A promise kept, commitment honored. "See that?" Neil murmured, eyes wide. "That's us. Humans," a miner whispered back, voice newly strong. Their spirits stitched back together, bound by the sight of the Vengeance tearing through space to stand with its own. The humans exchanged silent, unanimous pledges. "We fight for each other, always." The Sci-Fi ship floated through the blackness, all scratched up and flickering. Inside, the huge room quieted as commanders and planners whispered. They stood uneasy in a circle under the weak safety lights. They eyed each other, sensing the power shift. The commander stepped up. His jaws clicked fast, distressed. "The humans hurt more than us. They crushed the rebels. We need new ideas on who's weak." Murmurs rippled through the group. Another in fancy robes rose high in rank. "The humans fight crazy strong compared to their chill history." Eyes bounced around. A young officer stood. "Maybe we should respect humans. Ask them to join us, not fight them." Agreeing and disagreeing whispers blended together. They split into smaller huddles, voices rising and falling. The thick air held their big, unmade choices. In one huddle, a top advisor leaned in. "If we don't change, they'll overthrow us, not the other way." The drones quietly cleaned, unnoticed. One paused, antennae twitching at the talk. On the Vengeance, Adrian watched his crew tend the miners, unaware of the doubts he seeded on the Zephyr ship. Faces showed relief and tiredness. They shared water and food, patting backs. All had fought. All lived. Lieutenant Kim walked up, scanning her pad. "The Zephyr ship's pulling back. Hurt." Adrian nodded once. "Watch them. I want to know their every move." She saluted sharply and left. Adrian looked out into the speckled black, suns in the distance. He rested his hands on the cold metal and breathed deep. The ship's hum and voices were music to him, human resilience. Nearby, Neil watched his brother's quiet stand. He went over and joined at the window. "You did it, Adrian. We all did." Adrian turned to Neil. "We did what we had to." Beyond, the Zephyr debated their future, and as the stars saw, the hierarchy would never forget underestimating the human spirit. Adrian landed his boots in Ceres's dusty ground as the ship's ramp lowered down. He walked out and had to squint from the harsh sunlight. The workers stopped and stared at him. They quickly recognized him. Murmurs started, growing louder as cheers. The people crowded Adrian, clapping his back and shaking his hand excitedly. "You did it, you crazy guy!" A broad miner with a grimy face shouted. "Yeah, you spun those aliens till they were dizzy," another one yelled with laughter all around. Adrian found Neil in the crowd. They looked at each other for a moment before Neil stepped up and hugged him tightly. "Couldn't have made it without you, brother," Neil said. Adrian nodded. "We stick together. That's what humans do." The crowd came forward, bringing what food and drink they could share. Tables were set up fast as more miners and people from nearby came to join the party. Adrian stood up on a makeshift platform. Everyone went quiet and looked to him. "We faced tough odds and brutal enemies, but stood strong." Adrian spoke loudly for all to hear. It wasn't one guy. It was every miner who fought back, every soldier who battled, and every one of us who believe in what we can do together. Loud cheers broke out with fists pumping the air. Kids ran around mimicking ship moves with whooshing sounds. They were too young to know the costs and losses, but their joy was pure and catching. Later, with the twin moons up, things calmed down. Some miners gathered with grim faces. They talked about the ruined ancient site and excavation now buried and broken. "So much lost," one said thickly. "Who knows what secrets and power were down there?" Adrian listened and joined them. "We'll never know," he admitted, "but we got freedom, a chance to keep making our future." They all nodded, knowing he spoke the truth. As night deepened, the party wound down. Adrian stayed, watching the stars and vast silence of space. Out there, the angry Zephyr plotted revenge. They had learned not to underestimate humans, Those still awake talked low and seriously, making plans to rebuild, fortify, and remember the fallen. On the ship, Terran Vengeance, Lieutenant Sarah Kim oversaw repairs and resupply. She read Adrian's report and smiled slightly. "Good job, Captain," she whispered. The crew worked on screens full of data and diagnostics. In the corner, the comm officer got an encrypted message. He decrypted it, and his brows furrowed. "Ma'am, Federation News," he called to Lieutenant Kim. "Seems Adrian's stunt made bigger waves than we thought." She took the report. Now the Federation respected humanity more, knowing their capability for war. On Ceres, Adrian knew without reports. He saw it in the eyes of every miner and settler who looked to him. They knew their worth now. Humanity's message was clear. Don't make us angry. The briefing room on Ceres filled with tension. Leaders and military crowded around the table, faces serious. All eyes were on the screen, showing Ziffer Empire data. Adrian stood firm, surveying the room. They awaited his report. He cleared his throat and spoke loud and steady, like the metal walls surrounding them. "The Ziffer have split ranks. A rogue group is chasing old power. We smashed their project but stirred up more trouble." Heads nodded in agreement as papers shuffled and whispers filled the room. An officer leaned forward, hands together. "Will they retaliate?" he asked Adrian. "Their pride is wounded. They'll strike back to prove a point," Adrian replied. "We need to prepare." A woman in uniform brought up a star map. "We need full defense, not just skirmishes. We should reinforce outposts, even recall settlers." More suggestions came. "Miners can fight too. We should train them." Debate churned. Defense plans took shape. Training programs outlined. Eyes turned to Adrian again. "What do you suggest?" a civilian leader asked. Adrian flicked through ship and weapon images. "We can't wait for their attack. We train everyone. We put ships on alert. We upgrade defenses. We watch and listen in case they fracture more. Stay ready." The mood shifted to resolve with the cold touch of reality. War loomed. A soldier drummed fingers, the only outward anxiety. "What about the captured tech?" an aide asked. "Reverse engineer it, use anything that gives advantage," Adrian replied firmly. Approving nods. The group rose to act. Holograms vanished, leaving the stark truth. The Federation had pushed humanity, and now, with Adrian's guidance, they would push back. The Ziffer's power had cracked, and humans seized the chance. Smaller groups formed, plans made, orders given. Steel rang in their voices. Determination filled the room. All understood the gravity. All prepared to unite. In the corner, a strategist spoke into his comm. "Start drills in 1 hour." The storm had begun. This time, humans were the thunder. Lieutenant Sarah Kim paced back and forth on the Vengeance's cold metal bridge. The crew worked quietly on the glowing screens. Everyone felt the weight of their recent wins and losses. Sarah's boots clanged against the floor with each step, matching the tension inside her. She stopped and spun around as the comms beeped loud and harsh. A message scrolled across the screen, not from humans. The Ziffer. Their geometric letters requested a direct talk. Sarah's breath caught. She hit a button and the audio cracked to life, translating the metallic Ziffer speech into Federation standard. "Lieutenant Kim, I'm Envoy Thrick of the Ziffer. We need to talk about an urgent mutual benefit." Sarah's hand hovered over the console. Suspicion battled curiosity. Her mind raced thinking about deciding. She looked at her crew, then back to the console. She took a steady breath. "Patch him through to my office. Keep this quiet," she ordered. The officer nodded sternly. Sarah walked to her office, the door hissing closed behind her. The envoy appeared on screen, wrapped in dark cloth, only his bright eyes showing. Sarah sat straight, face blank. "Envoy Thrick, get to the point about this mutual benefit," Sarah said clearly and sharply. Thrick's eyes gleamed as he leaned forward. "Lieutenant, we know about the rogue faction within us. Their actions have shamed our people and endangered the galaxy. We want an alliance to stop them. Together, our forces can bring stability." Sarah glanced at the intel reports on her desk. Lost friends, the cost of war. She folded her hands, knuckles white. "You expect us to forget the war, trust you?" she challenged. "The rogue faction threatens us all," Thrick pressed. "This is about survival, not trust." Sarah considered the offer. An alliance could bring shared resources, safety, prevent more bloodshed, but depending on a former enemy, showing weakness? Sarah tapped the desk, the sound loud in the quiet room. "You know what you ask? Our people just fought for their lives against you," she stated, gazing at the screen. "We understand, Lieutenant," Thrick replied. "We too have lost much. It's time to end this crisis." The room was still except for blinking console lights. Sarah looked at the cold, distant stars. The choice felt like standing on a cliff's edge. "Send me the terms, we'll consider them," Sarah finally said, hiding her struggle. Her words felt like chess moves, each critical in this high-stakes game. The envoy nodded, eyes crinkling in satisfaction. "We'll send details. We anticipate your cooperation, Lieutenant Kim." The screen went black. Sarah exhaled deeply. She stood, staring into space, knowing she stood at a crossroads of history. Every choice could lead to peace or reignite war. The crew awaited her on the bridge, looking to her for guidance. Sarah squared her shoulders and headed back. There would be talks, maybe arguments, but she knew they faced the dichotomy of war and cooperation to be navigated carefully. For now, she would prepare for both the olive branch and the sword. Adrian stared at the scorch marks on the walls. Burnt metal and fire stink filled the air. Workers hurried to fix things. Everyone was on edge after the Ziffer attack. Adrian moved to a console. His fingers flew, calling up reports from other attacks. Outposts like this dotted the fringes, vulnerable. The Federation's peace dream with the Ziffer was failing. An officer approached, face grim. More reports coming in, same everywhere. They hit and vanished. Rage simmered behind the man's steady voice. Adrian turned to him. "We have to understand, not just react. I need every detail." His firm, calm tone hid his inner turmoil. Holoscreens flickered with Ziffer envoys. Adrian had dealt with them for weeks, balancing his people and the aliens. Each talk was tense, ready to break. He faced the uneasy envoys. "This can't continue. My people are dying. We need action, not words." The lead envoy met his gaze. "The attacks weren't ordered by us. We have rogues, too." Adrian nodded. "We must stand together then, or both sides lose. You have my ear. Now earn my trust." Shouts drew their attention. Adrian saw miners and soldiers outside, defiant. They were survivors, but endless war loomed. Returning, Adrian stood firm. "I can hold the humans for now, but we need proof you're committed." The envoys exchanged glances, skin shifting colors. Finally, the lead envoy bowed. "We'll give you rogue base locations. You'll see we want this alliance." Adrian's jaw tightened. It was a start. Proof would be in his people's survival. Later, as the envoys left, Adrian faced the hopeful, fearful eyes. "We'll use their intel, protect our own, take the fight to the rogues." Nods came, strength building. Outside, shadows stretched over damaged land. Adrian watched nightfall, knowing the long vigilance ahead. Humans would stand tall, equal players on the galactic stage. Adrian crouched behind the wall in the dark cargo hold, spying through a hatch. He breathed steady and slow, like the ship's engine hum. A line of Ziffer ships stretched ahead, their hulls dark mirrors in space. He checked his weapon, feeling the hard grip and cold metal. It had the power to punch through the thickest shell. "We're ready, Captain," Ellis whispered. She could move like a ghost even in combat gear. "Signal the team, Mark," Adrian said in a low rasp. Ellis raised her hand. 4 shadows emerged. No words, just sharp nods. Humans on an alien ship, each step risky. They had learned silence. Adrian dropped his hand. Ellis hacked the bay door controls. The door slid open with a faint whoosh. The guarded convoy inside lay exposed. They slipped through. Guards milled around crates, catching the dim light with chitin shells. They clicked in their speech. The team's sights rested on them as they moved fast to targets. In one move, Adrian's team took the guards down. Ellis reached the first crate, cutting the lock with a laser. She lifted the lid. Inside lay sleek, deadly energy weapons. "Just what we need," Adrian muttered. Footsteps snapped his focus. More guards, drawn by noise. The fight was a blur. Blasts, bodies hitting heavy, sharp ozone tang. Adrian led, aim true, clearing the path. They secured the area as the alarm blared. Minutes left, maybe less. Adrian grabbed a high-ranking Ziffer, uniform showing status. He dragged him into the hold. "The convoy, tell!" Adrian demanded, grip iron hard on its arm. Fear and resignation flickered in the Ziffer's eyes. "You won't win. More at play. Humans, traitors, dealing for gain." The words hit Adrian like a blow. Betrayal stung bitter and cold in his chest. "Names! Give them!" he growled, shoving it against the hull. "No names. Splinter group shadows," it spat out, trembling under Adrian's gaze. Adrian locked eyes with Ellis, who nodded grimly back. The team felt the betrayal like a weight. The Ziffer was bound and gagged as they readied to leave. "Time to go," Adrian said, voice steel thread. They moved quick and quiet back to their ship with the captive. Adrian's heart pounded against his ribs, not from effort, but from the seed of distrust planted. Who to trust now? Stars blurred past as they pulled away, silent witnesses to the treachery within. Adrian sat in dim light, jaw set, mind racing. Splinter groups, human traitors, alliance fracturing, it all pressed down. He looked to Ellis securing their prisoner. "Get me command secure. Time to dig out this rot." Ellis nodded, understanding the urgency. Face hard lines. Work ahead, trust to rebuild. But clear, humanity would not stand for betrayal, within or without. They would rise together, as they always had. Adrian stared at the Ziffer officer in the chair. The small room smelled like medicine. Dim lights cast long shadows on the walls. The alien skin changed colors, showing it was scared. "You know how much trouble you're in," Adrian said in a calm, quiet voice. "Help us stop the killing, or you'll regret staying silent." The Ziffer's eyes flickered. Its mouth parts trembled a little. Information was all it had to bargain. It spoke, the device on its neck translating its harsh sounds to words. "The plan is real. They want to kill leaders on both sides, human and Ziffer." Adrian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. He kept his eyes locked on it. "Names, places. We need everything if you want protection." The Ziffer's colors blended into a muddy mess. It gave up coordinates, plans, and the name of a human traitor, a high official who had become a mole. Adrian stood quickly. "You did the right thing," he said, signaling the guards to secure the Ziffer. Time was against him now. He strode down the narrow metal halls of the base, his boots echoing off the floors. Each turn brought him closer to the war room, where his contacts from different planets and species waited for his signal. He entered the war room and found them around hologram maps and data, their faces lit by the glowing lights. "We have a leak," Adrian said bluntly. "A plot to kill our leaders." Murmurs went through the room. Eyes opened wide, some afraid, some angry. Adrian clenched his fist. "The Ziffer sang like a bird," he said. "We've got names and places. We're stopping this now." Commands flew as Adrian's network jumped into action. They sent warnings to key leaders about the threat. Teams formed, tasked with exposing the traitors. Within hours, they raided where the human plotters were meeting, catching them off guard. The traitors grabbed for weapons, shouting, but Adrian's team was faster. They had practiced this many times, moving quick and precise. The leader of the plot stood caught red-handed, evidence piled on the table before him. Adrian faced the man he once called a friend. "Why?" he asked, the hurt clear in his voice. Lies poured from the traitor, a mix of greed and anger with peace politics. Adrian shook his head, disgusted. "Lock him up. He'll stand trial for this betrayal." News of the foiled assassination attempt spread rapidly. Humans and Ziffer alike expressed shock and relief. They talked openly of narrowly avoiding war thanks to Adrian's actions. Later, in a secure place, Adrian met with Ziffer and human leaders. The mood was tense, weighed down by what almost happened. Adrian stood tall, shoulders back. "This was close," he said, "but we have a chance to end this cycle of betrayal." Silent but firm agreement came from around the table. Talks began, working through the hard issues between species. Adrian stayed alert, the traitors caught, but their plot a harsh reminder of the fragile balance. The alliance would be stronger now, built on the truth uncovered, and disaster averted. Adrian felt the resolve of humans and Ziffer harden. They would move forward together, cautious but hopeful, the shadows of lies swept away for now by the light of unity. The summit room buzzed with low voices, chairs scraped, fists hit the table. Human and Ziffer leaders ringed the table. Each had their own plan. All were tense. Guards stood at the doors, watching everything, hands on their weapons. Adrian watched the group. He stood just outside the circle, close enough to see faces, to read the room. Past meetings had taught him the signs of lies, the slight changes that said everything. His information painted a clear picture of today. The air felt heavy, full of the electric charge of calculations, of choices that could bring peace or war. A tall Ziffer spoke. Its translator turned clacks and hisses to words. "We understand the past can't change. We want a new start, a ceasefire commitment." From the corner of his eye, Adrian saw it. A human delegate's hand moved too deliberately, too tense, toward the underside of the table. No one else noticed. Their focus stayed on the Ziffer's words. Adrian moved without a sound, his boots silent on the carpet, his gaze fixed on the hand. It inched toward what he knew hid there. Time slowed. He took in the room. A Ziffer's nervous antenna twitch, a commander's rigid posture, the hope in an aide's eyes. He reached the delegate as the hand slipped under the coat. In one smooth motion, Adrian grabbed the wrist, squeezed hard. Metal flashed before he slammed it on the table. A disruptor pistol, sleek and deadly. The room exploded. Guards raised weapons, alarm and confusion mixed with adrenaline, but Adrian's voice cut through it all. He pushed the delegate forward, exposing the threat. "You just sealed your fate," Adrian said, icy. The delegate's face twisted with rage and fear. Words tumbled out. "You don't understand. We have to—" Adrian's grip tightened, stopping the words. "There's nothing to understand about betrayal." More guards took the would-be assassin away. The leaders watched in shock. Realization settled like a cold shroud. Adrian stood firm, his presence reassured. His actions spoke clearly. After leaders exchanged looks, words weren't needed. The shared glance said it all. Their lives had rested in each other's hands. A human had saved them. Talks resumed, but the mood had shifted. The summit, now marked by heroism, had become a turning point. They hashed out terms, voices urgent but steady now, paper scribbles, nods between species, each point debated, then set. The air lightened with agreement. With knowing the danger had been put out by cooperation, not conflict. Adrian watched, chest tight. This moment meant so much. As the final terms were signed, a ceasefire was born. Hands were shaken, some reluctant, some grateful. The room emptied. The buzz of talk faded. Adrian looked at the signed paper on the table, simple black ink holding the weight of civilizations. In the silence, he acknowledged the fragility of what had been achieved, and the resolve needed to maintain it. Outside, stars burned bright against the endless black, indifferent to the fragile peace below. Yet for the first time in so long, a glimmer of hope remained that the peace might hold. Adrian's actions had not just stopped disaster. They had paved the way for a new era, one where humanity would not be subject or enemy, but equal, with the power to change history's course. The truce between humans and the Ziffer was fragile. Adrian studied the maps in the strategy room. Red dots marked recent battles along the frontier. Even with peace talks, fighting continued. Adrian paced the metal floor, resolved. He scanned the reports for patterns, for a way through this diplomatic mess. Captain Ramirez entered. His uniform showed service, his face showed the hour's fatigue. "Sir, they hit Eridani supply. Minor damage, but testing us," Ramirez said, anger lacing his concern. Adrian stared at the blinking Eridani dot. He nodded, silent. They had planned for this. Every response now meant war or peace. "Launch Peacehawks, defense only, no counter. Get me the war synod," Adrian commanded. Ramirez obeyed instantly. Adrian opened communications. The Ziffer war consort appeared, eyes narrowed. "We know about Eridani. This is not our peace," Adrian stated evenly, firm as an atmosphere against space. The consort flicked its tongue, uncomfortable. "Rogue ones. Unsanctioned. We will investigate. Investigate quickly. Our truce is fresh, must be stronger, Adrian replied, holding the alien's gaze. We will, the consort rasped. The screen blinked out. For hours, Adrian directed restraint. Peacehawk ships held at the border, weapons ready, but cold. Their presence reminded the Ziffer of human resolve. Eridani stayed quiet, tense but battle-silent. Days passed, each victory in silence. Adrian lay awake, thinking of the billions relying on this balance. The ceasefires held, the skirmishes declined, trust slowly rewove, thread by thread. Peace was the goal, hard-fought and fragile. It needed vigilance, patience, strategy. Adrian had these qualities. The peace held, uneasy as circling foes. Adrian traced the fewer red dots. Not perfect, not permanent, but for now, enough. Humans and Ziffer breathed in the stillness, wary but hopeful, under Adrian's watchful eyes. He knew war's cost, peace's value. In the lab, machines hummed. Scientists bustled around. Human scientists wore white coats. Ziffer defectors worked too, their scales dull grey. They needed each other to meet their goal. The room was huge. The walls had screens and wires, both human and Ziffer made. The screens blinked with plans and code. A trophy warship sat in the center under bright lights. Its hull was marked by battle scars. Dr. Torres directed the team. She pulled her hair back tight. Her eyes were sharp. Her voice demanded respect. She pointed to where the alien ship merged with human steel. Here, she said loud and clear. The fusion drives, they've cracked it, watch. A young engineer worked the controls. He linked the alien and human tech together. The drive hummed as it powered up. Its core glowed blue. Torres saw the numbers spike on the screens. Their work was a success. The room erupted with cheers. But Torres looked ahead. This was more than science. It was a game changer. She called Captain Adrian on a secure line. Adrian's face looked tired and wary. Torres, he said, tense. What's happening? We did it, Torres said, excited. We know how the drives work. We have real power now. Adrian's forehead creased. He grasped the news. Power had shifted subtly. New questions would come up. The future was uncertain. We need to talk, Adrian said. No waiting. I agree, Torres nodded. I'll send a report. We need a new plan. The screen went black as Adrian signed off. Torres returned to the busy lab. Humans and Ziffer worked together, but they whispered too. The Ziffer clicked and rumbled. They looked at the humans with some hope and some fear. The scientists quieted and circled Torres. Pride and worry showed on their faces. We need to talk, one said. His hand gripped a chair tight. Yes, new territory here, Torres agreed. War or peace could come from this. They all nodded, thinking. The noise faded as they grasped the weight of their work. This invention might defend or destroy. As the team dispersed, Torres touched the cold ship. She felt the potential under her fingertips. Together they had pulled back the veil of mystery to reveal a powerful future. The lab lights flickered as the drive powered down. The blue faded. Outside, stars waited silently. Humanity stood at the edge of a new dawn. Armed with stolen knowledge, their path was theirs to choose. Adrian ran his finger along the edge of the war room table where people had tried to create peace. The room felt smaller, like it was holding its breath. The bass hummed around him, but just a moment ago he had been fighting a war. Now peace was on his shoulders, real as the reports and messages stacked up. Lee walked in, boots on the metal floor. She handed him the latest intel, looking into his eyes. "Ready for the meeting?" she asked. Adrian nodded, scanning the pages. He saw kids laughing on Earth, unaware how close they'd come to silence, to nothing. "We're stretched thin," he said. "Their fleets still crowd the rim. Ours are ready, but hoping to stay put," Lee replied, sounding tired as he felt. Adrian tapped the report. "This meeting decides it. We push for peace or get ready to fight." Lee sighed. "We're hanging on by a thread here, aren't we?" "We hang on and fight when pushed. It's what we do." Adrian leaned back as the chair creaked. "Think they'll listen?" "They'll have to." His eyes hardened. "We've shown our teeth enough. The comm beeped. It was time. They wanted him at the meeting, humans and aliens looking to shape history. Would they stand together or fall divided? The halls were quiet as Adrian walked to the room, feeling the weight of every choice, every life saved. He passed crew who nodded, their eyes reflecting the stories they'd lived. In the meeting room, leaders gathered, human faces like steel, alien scales shifting in the dim light. Talking stopped as Adrian entered. "Commander," a human leader said with respect. The aliens turned, cautious and respectful. The silence said it all. Adrian stood before them, commanding the room with his presence. No greeting, no preamble. "We're at a crossroads," he began, voice steady. "We build something lasting or brace for a storm that rips us apart." An alien stepped forward. "You say trust, yet your kind fights when riled up." Murmurs rose. Adrian met its gaze. "We fight to protect our own," he said, "but we've bled together. We have the scars to prove it." Adrian looked around, locking eyes with each leader. "This peace is fragile. It needs champions. Without it, we just wait for the next blade to fall." A human joined him. "The commander speaks truth. We know what fear brings." Heads nodded. The decision's weight felt by all. "We choose now," Adrian said. "Alliance or war?" The alien grasped his hand. "For our children and the stars lighting their dreams." Agreement filled the room. Strategy and hope blended. Pacts made in handshakes and nods. Leaving the meeting, Adrian felt lighter, more determined. They would fiercely protect this fragile peace, building a future that meant something. In the hallway, Adrian paused. Choices made here would ripple through time, and humanity, resolute, would stand as guardians. Whatever the cost, they were ready. Darkness surrounded the border outposts. Bursts of light and ground-shaking booms broke the quiet. Explosions threw metal and dirt into the night sky. Alarms screamed in the new silence. Adrian's wrist comm blinked urgently. The border was under attack. He called his team. Their faces tense, they geared up fast. No need for speeches. Their eyes said it all. They were ready. "Lock and load," Adrian said firmly. The dropship engines roared, vibrations shaking the cabin. It hurtled through the blackness of space. Adrian scanned satellite footage, fingers flying over the glowing screen. Blasts at both human and Zephyr outposts. This was no coincidence. They landed on scorched earth, the stink of smoke thick in the air. Adrian stepped out first, boots crunching debris. They fanned out, searching through the destruction for clues. Only footsteps and radio static broke the heavy silence. The team combed the twisted metal, scanning for tech and residues. A shout. One soldier waved a jagged shrapnel fragment marked with strange symbols. "Got something," he called over the comm. Adrian took the metal piece, not human or Zephyr symbols. This was the work of outsiders. His gut tightened. A setup to turn allies into enemies. They worked fast, documenting evidence and sending it through secure channels, every minute crucial. Adrian's comm lit up with incoming human and Zephyr messages, demands for answers, accusations flying, threats looming. But he held firm, relaying the findings. "Not us, not them. Look at the evidence," he insisted. "It's someone else." The accusations slowed. Consideration took over. A breakthrough. Both sides agreed to meet, to see the evidence themselves. Unprecedented joint investigation. Adrian watched the leaders examine the fragment, suspicion shifting to understanding. A crack formed in the wall of mistrust. "We'll find who did this together," a Zephyr leader hissed through the translator. Adrian nodded. A start, a real start. "Unity is our strength," he said. They strategized, divided tasks, movements now synced with shared purpose. Cooperation, a testament to Adrian's push for unity. As Adrian left the meeting, dawn's light brushed the wreckage. Peace remained, shaken but intact. He watched the quiet border as the sun rose, the first signs of a bond forming in the morning light. Adrian crouched behind a rusty shipping container, scanning the quiet docks. He tasted salt in the air. The huge freighters reeked of metal and likely carried illegal arms shipments too. He gripped his plasma rifle, feeling the smooth coolness. A breeze fluttered his jacket collar. The Ziffer team clicked softly, their scales glinting in moonlight. They checked weapons and gear with sharp, precise hand movements. Each distinct click carried urgency. Humans and Ziffer both had stakes here tonight, to catch the broker. His earpiece buzzed. Lee's voice came through clear. "Target's moving zone 2. Get ready." Adrian nodded, though she couldn't see him. "Copy, Lee, eyes sharp." Shadowy figures in cloaks approached a guarded freighter dock. That was the rendezvous point. The broker would be here. Adrian signaled sharply. The Ziffer shifted, coiled tight and ready. This bust would expose the rot they'd sensed, but couldn't grasp. Until now. The figures stopped at the freighter. One pulled back his hood, revealing a scarred face. The broker. Adrian's heart thumped hard. This was it. Lee again. "Confirm target. Go, go, go." Adrian rose fluidly, moving deliberate and measured. The team followed. Human precision, Ziffer grace. A silent menace stalking the steel docks. The broker turned, sensing something, but Adrian was faster. He fired a web, tangling the broker in unbreakable fibers. His rifle hummed a promise of custody. The broker struggled and cursed. "You can't do this." Adrian aimed his rifle. "We can for arms dealing and conspiracy." Ziffer secured the area, weapons on safe with soft clicks. Humans slapped electric cuffs on the other figures. The broker glared up at Adrian, anger etched on his face. "You've no idea what you've started," he hissed with venom. "We'll see," Adrian said evenly, feeling satisfied inside. They found data pads and encrypted drives in the ship's hold, along with weapon racks, testaments to betrayal. Lee's fingers flew, extracting data while lights danced on her focused face. Hours later, Adrian stood in the war room with human and Ziffer leaders. Screens displayed the broker's vast network, lines connecting officials, planets, outposts, each line a fracture in trust. First silence, then a storm of voices, accusations, denials, fear, anger, confusion. But Adrian's voice was a beacon. "This conspiracy used us all. See who benefited from our conflicts," he said, pointing at the exposed evidence. Leaders leaned in as the truth sank in, shock, disgust, realization. Behind the glass, the broker's smug smirk had fallen away. His eyes flickered between screens, showing fear for the first time. "This changes everything." A Ziffer leader clicked. "We must purge our ranks. Together." Adrian nodded, sensing the shifting mood. Unity forged from deceit's crucible. He turned to address them all. "Today we're at a crossroads. We clean house or let this rot fester. Your choice." The room stilled, a pause in the galaxy's heartbeat. Then came nods, human and Ziffer, committing together. Outside, uncaring stars burned, but in the quiet room, resolution formed. A united front against corruption, human and Ziffer shoulder to shoulder. The fragile peace held for now. Adrian looked at the data on his wrist screen. He stood in the tight briefing room on the stealth ship. The engines always whispered. His team watched him. They faced death together before. They were ready, their resolve solid as the hull. The data worried Adrian. It showed plans for a giant Ziffer weapon. It could tear apart planets. It could end all life where worlds once existed. Adrian's guts tightened. They couldn't let this weapon fire. Never. He looked at each team member. "Listen," he said quietly. "This isn't about just us. If this weapon starts, everything dies. We end it, or we die trying." They nodded. They knew the stakes out here in the blackness between stars. The ship shuddered as it left warp speed. On the screen, the enemy base hung in space. It looked dark and mean, built for evil. In the silence, the team checked their gear. Blasters whined, fully charged. Hacking tools blinked, ready in gloved hands. They floated through the airlock, ghosts with guns. The door hissed open. They slipped into the enemy base like shadows. The hall stretched out, cold and dark. Alien words flickered on screens. The translators in their ears made sense of them. No one spoke. They used hand signals, sharp and clear. They entered the central room. The weapon hummed, dormant for now. Its blueprints streamed on screens. Adrian signaled the tech expert, a young woman whose eyes missed nothing. She nodded, fingers flying on a stolen tablet. She sliced through their firewalls like a knife through skin. The data transferred as code flooded their channels. Seconds passed like hours. Finally, the device beeped. She looked up and nodded. Controlled chaos followed. They planted charges to wound, not kill. A message. Humans can fight without oblivion. Adrian led them out, quiet as the grave. The base would live, but weakened, its fangs removed. Explosions rocked the stronghold as they escaped. Fire and force bit metal and wires. Alarms screamed panic. They moved through it, ghosts, now reapers. Back on the ship, engines burning, they watched the base shrink away. It was crippled, the threat gone. But the weapon remained, sleeping, a giant in the dark. Adrian felt the deck rumble as they slid into the blackness of space. The stars could be saved worlds now. They had shown the galaxy that humans weren't just data. They were defenders, warriors. As starlight flickered in his eyes, Adrian knew underestimating humans was a grave mistake. The assembly hall buzzed with voices. It was a huge round room made for all kinds of aliens, with a dome ceiling showing a live hologram of the stars where they were fighting. A big round table stood in the middle, where people from Earth and Sci-Fi sat facing each other, eyes on the screens showing the plan. Adrian walked in with confidence, his uniform perfect. Medals from old battles shined as he moved, proving he had won fights and made friends. He sat with the other leaders, relaxed but alert. A tall Ziffer with green scales tapped the table to get attention. The room went quiet, the only noise the glow of the stars above. The Ziffer's gravelly voice boomed, translated for all to hear. The attack shows these rebel guys want to hurt us all. Their weapon, now broken, woke us up. Heads nodded, everyone getting it. The Ziffer looked around, staring at them before going on. We need to join up, wreck what's left of the rebels, make a force to keep the peace. Whispers grew, some agreeing, others unsure. A woman from Earth leaned forward, voice strong. Who leads this force? Trust ain't easy. Eyes turned to Adrian. The Ziffer pointed his claw at Adrian. Commander Adrian proved himself. What he did shows it. He leads. Murmurs of yes came from the room. Adrian stayed still, feeling the weight of it. Then he stood, voice reaching all corners. I'll protect the peace we built. Earth, Ziffer, doesn't matter. We face the threats together. Nods of approval came around the table, even from people who used to doubt them working together. The screen in the center changed, showing a new badge, a joint peacekeeping team. Hands reached across, shaking, while the stars above moved with new bonds and borders. Adrian stepped back, mind already racing. Keeping the peace meant balancing different species. His wristcom buzzed with messages coming in, new threats, logistics, meeting requests. The work started now. Outside the hall, Adrian's team waited, their faces serious but ready. They knew how hard this would be. He nodded slightly. Let's get to it. His eyes caught the glint of starlight on the metal walls, witnessing the promises made. The meeting ended, but Adrian's real challenge was just starting. The control room was a mess, lights flashed, voices shouted with urgency. Adrian stood in the center, calm, even in chaos. The colony on Titan shook violently. Earthquakes tore through the buildings, dust choked the air, structures bucked like wild horses. People ran in fear. Their faces showed terror. Adrian's wristcom buzzed. Lee's strained voice came through. Commander, the quakes are getting worse. We need the Ziffer tech now. He knew their machines could stop the quakes, but the Ziffer held back, afraid of tricks. Adrian understood their distrust. He called the Ziffer commander. The alien's wary face appeared on screen. No games, Adrian said. My people are dying. You can save them. Let's move past the past. Silence. The Ziffer's eyes shifted with the weight of deciding. Then a nod came. We will help, but we will watch. Agreed. Adrian's voice remained steady. Later, massive Ziffer ships hovered over Titan. They deployed stabilizing tech, beams reaching the shaking ground. The quakes stilled slowly. Dust settled. People emerged, staring up in wonder. Cameras captured every moment. The footage streamed across human and Ziffer networks, proof they could unite. After Adrian addressed the crowd of humans and Ziffer, he pointed to the buildings still standing, the laughing children. "This is unity." Cheers erupted. Ziffer and humans clasped hands. Together they had averted crisis. Adrian watched with swelling pride. Cooperation was real now, not just a word. It meant life. The war room was tense. Screens showed protests and uprising spreading. Soldiers stood ready, waiting for Adrian's order. He saw loyalty and fear in their faces. No joy for this mission against their own brothers. The outpost was on Europa, an icy moon around Jupiter, key for getting resources where they needed to go. Now some allies had taken it over, waving independence flags. Men Adrian once called friends. Adrian moved among his peacekeepers, checking gear, sensing their determination. They glanced at the Ziffer symbols on their uniforms, reminding them of their duty. This would test them. How do you stop your own people, but still keep the peace? "Commander, they control the command center." "Barricaded themselves in," the radio squawked. Adrian clenched his jaw. The rebels wanted freedom from Ziffer rule, but to Adrian the alliance was a bridge, one that could save or doom mankind. He took a breath. No deaths unless necessary. Stun rounds only. His voice stayed firm. This was still a rescue mission, in a way. The ships descended in silence to Europa's icy surface. The base blinked distress signals into the black sky. Adrian led his team through icy corridors, quiet and controlled. They reached the command room. The heavy doors were locked. His tech officer worked the keypad. Sparks flew, and the door slid open. Inside, the rebels braced for battle. Pipes and metal formed barricades, but doubt showed on their faces. They knew this was brother against brother. Adrian stepped forward, hands raised, ready to talk. "This isn't the way," he began. "Leaving Ziffer means leaving your own kind. We can fix this together." One rebel woman met his eyes, dark as the space outside. Her hand hesitated on her gun. She didn't want bloodshed, but pride held her back. A young man suddenly lunged, weapon aimed, not hate in his eyes, but fear. Adrian's stun blast dropped him safely. Adrian moved in, his team disarming the rebels quickly and smoothly. The woman's eyes stayed on Adrian, showing defeat and hope both. "We just want to be heard," she said. Adrian nodded. "You will be. As part of this alliance, together we stand, divided we fall." The coup ended fast, with care taken. The dissidents were detained, but as fellow humans. The message spread on all channels. Peace won. Not by force, but precision and mercy. Adrian's reputation grew. As he watched the last rebels escorted out, he knew they'd passed a test. If they stayed united, they had a chance at a future worth fighting for. Neil stood before the crowd, their faces peering at him from behind the clear panel. Humans and Ziffer alike listened, some wearing uniforms worn from fighting, others in miners' clothes that had known chains. His voice filled the room without needing help. "People here today," he started, looking each one in the eye. "I'm not a soldier or politician. I'm a survivor." Murmurs rippled through them. Neil waited for it to quiet down before going on. "In the mines, I learned about pain, but more about being strong." He pointed to the side screen lighting up with humans working the mines, Ziffer guards watching harshly. "See them? Not victims, fighters, survivors." The room went silent as the faces stared back. A big Ziffer council member leaned in, staring at the screen. "I say we start a program," Neil declared. "Not just for those in chains, but for anyone hurting from this." In the crowd, an ex-prisoner touched her wrist scars from shackles now gone. She looked up, eyes meeting Neil's, and nodded slightly. In back, Neil's brother Adrian watched, pride breaking through his stern face. Neil was more than a brother to him, a beacon for the strength in all humans. "Healing takes all of us together," Neil went on, his own experiences filling his plea. "Humans and Ziffer." A Ziffer delegate rose, scales shimmering. "I stand with this one," it clicked in translation. "His strength is ours to share." Across the room, hands went up, human and not. Neil had brought them together beyond worlds apart. In the days after, the centre bustled with life. Neil worked with Ziffer therapists, joining sessions, sharing his story, listening. Walls filled with paintings and photos of surviving and hoping. Telling stories and sitting in silence, the place became more than a building. It showed what had been endured and could be overcome. In common rooms, laughter and nods grew seeds of understanding. Watching from afar, Adrian knew this was more than recovery. It was a new story for both their peoples, of being strong, of uniting, of never giving up. And in it all, Neil's voice echoed, not of the past, but calling for their future. Adrian's boots echoed on the metal floor as he entered the dim room. He saw the broker sitting at the table, shadows across his face. Screens behind him glowed, numbers and data meaning nothing to most, but everything to some. The broker tapped on the table, each click full of potential chouse. "You're late," the broker said flatly. Adrian pulled out a chair, metal scraping, and sat. He put his hands on the table, palms down, fingers spread. "Let's skip the niceties. What do you have for me?" The broker leaned back, staring at Adrian coldly. "Information," he said, pressing a button. A holographic map appeared between them. A human city, pulsed red. "A Ziffer cell. They're planning a strike. Here." Adrian studied the map, the red target zones. He didn't react. Inside, his mind raced, calculating risks and making plans. "And your price?" A smirk flickered on the broker's face. "I'm sure we can make a deal." They haggled for hours, a verbal chess match with lives at stake. The broker coyly dropped hints, pretending disinterest, but Adrian stayed cool. He asked direct questions, searched for weaknesses, and pieced together the full threat. The data transferred to Adrian's wrist device. He felt the weight of the knowledge, the burden of responsibility on his shoulders. The broker watched him with that unreadable look. "You know," the broker said, breaking the silence, "peace is such a fragile thing, hanging by a thread." Adrian stood, the map disappearing. "Some threads are stronger than you think." His voice was steady, hiding the turmoil inside. He left the room, the door hissing shut, sealing the broker back into his shadows. The city's heartbeat beat in Adrian's pocket. The data chip a stark reminder. Peace rested on a knife's edge. The space outside the cockpit lit up as the peacekeepers fought the Ziffer fleet. Adrian locked onto his targets and blasted ship after ship into clouds of debris. His fingers tensed on the trigger with each shot. The explosions echoed in the empty void. "Keep them off us, no surprises," Adrian ordered. The crew's hands flew over the controls, firing back against the attacks. The ship shuddered under the barrage. The Ziffer ships edged closer, tightening the noose. The crew felt the tension rise. Their pulses raced as the gap narrowed. The peacekeepers dove through the Ziffer formation, desperately trying to break them. Each move countered the Ziffer's attacks. "Incoming!" a crewman shouted, voice hard as steel. Adrian checked the radar. A swarm headed right for them. "Hard turn! Full power!" he yelled. The ship groaned in protest, but dodged the attack. Scraped paint was the only damage. The deafening battle raged on. Cannons roared. Then a direct hit bucked the ship wildly. Alarms wailed. Adrian heard the crunch of twisted metal, then silence as the engines died. "We're hit. Life support's on, but we're dead in space," the crewman said, strained but steady. Adrian gripped his chair. They were stranded targets. "Damage report now," Adrian barked. Eyes darted to flickering screens grim with stats. Voices overlapped with rapid updates. The comms crackled. "Adrian, this is Vengeance. Sit tight, we're coming," Lieutenant Sarah Kim said. "We've got your 6. But the Zephyr pressed the attack. More impacts rocked the ship. Boarding parties approached. Disabled prey wouldn't satisfy them. They wanted prisoners. Adrian stood slowly. "Lock and load. They board, they bleed," he stated. The crew nodded and grabbed their weapons. Adrian checked his blaster, its weight familiar, as the crew barricaded the bridge door. The airlock hissed open. Ziffer warriors charged in. Gunfire snapped in the tight space. Adrian moved with purpose, each shot driving the invaders back. His crew fought with equal fury, their shouts and blasts relentless. The Zephyr kept coming, but the humans pushed back harder. They fought not for glory, but life itself. each one a wall denying defeat. Adrian saw the determination in their smeared faces. They knew the odds and still rose to the challenge. Their courage fueled the stand. The long minutes dragged on, each second a battle for survival. The Zephyr ranks narrowed under the onslaught. Finally, a pause to gasp ragged breaths amid bodies and debris. The fight for the ship was over, but safety was not yet assured. Then the roar of the Vengeance pierced the aftermath. Reinforcements rushed in. Adrian leaned on the wall as the tension drained away. They had narrowly dodged disaster. He looked at his weary but proud crew. They had faced the void and their enemy. They had stood firm. Humanity's spirit was tested again in the crippled ship adrift in space. Once more it proved unbreakable. Adrian walked into the war room. The hum stopped. Screens on the walls flickered with reports of fights and secret missions. He paused at the door. Victories weighed on his shoulders. Losses burned in his chest. Men and women in uniform saluted Adrian. Some had bandages. They had lived, but carried scars. Adrian remembered Thompson's helmet cracked open, leaking life. He shook off the memory. He focused on the living. Their faces showed triumph and pain. On the table, a hologram of the Peace Academy plan floated. Ghost cadets marched inside. Officers around the table went quiet as Adrian put his hands on the table. "Listen," he said. His voice spread certainty. "Peace took sacrifice. The Academy will train new generations to be better, so no one else has to die like our people did." In front, a woman with a sling looked up. Her eyes were hard. Next to her, a young cadet nodded solemnly. Adrian kept talking. "We lost good people. Their sacrifice carved out this peace. We owe them. We'll teach the new ones to fight, think, and lead, so they come back from space with victory and intact crews." People nodded more. Faces lifted up. Adrian turned off the hologram. He faced his team. "We're building a legacy. Let's work." They worked hard. Weeks passed. Adrian saw recruits become soldiers. He watched them learn strategy, tech. He saw sweat on their brows. One sunset, Adrian stood in the yard. His shadow stretched long on concrete. Cadets lined up, tired but eyes burning. "You're the new guard," he said. "Carry it well." The cadets saluted together, crisp snap. Adrian walked away. Their training continued. Metal clanged. Voices called cadence. The future would be ready. It would remember the peace cost and humanity's strength. Adrian walked into the makeshift gallery. The walls were lined with paintings. Zephyr delegates shuffled next to the human artists. The Zephyr eyes looked over the paintings, trying to understand the human emotions shown. One Zephyr reached out a clawed hand. It brushed against the rough canvas, grasping how the painting showed emotion. Nearby, a guitarist played music. His fingers danced over the strings. The notes filled the room with haunting melodies. Zephyr ears twitched as they listened, their heads tilted. The music captivated them. Though music was universal, the passion and sorrow in the humans playing was foreign to them. People gathered around to listen. Humans and Zephyr together shared in the raw throb of life that the guitarist played. In the corner, a philosopher spoke. His words flowed steadily, weaving tales of human history and beliefs. The Zephyr stood wrapped in attention, absorbing the ideas so unlike their own. Adrian saw the understanding dawn in their eyes. The unfamiliarity between the species crumbled as they found shared experiences. A Zephyr poet tried to recite a human poem. He stumbled over the rhythms, but pushed onward. He wanted to connect both species through verse. It wasn't perfect or correct, but the meaning came through. The humans applauded his effort to share their culture. Over days, laughter filled the halls. Photos of human moments drew crowds of Zephyr. Debates sprung up between Zephyr scholars and human thinkers. An unforeseen friendship grew between the species. One evening, Adrian stood with a Zephyr at a sculpture. Twisted metal shaped it. To some it showed struggle, to others triumph. "What does this make you feel?" Adrian asked. The Zephyr hummed, its eyes narrowing at the piece. "Hope," it said in its own tongue, "even in chaos." Adrian smiled. "Exactly." This was the purpose of the exchange, not goods or technology, but souls. The Zephyr sought knowledge, and instead found kinship. So the program grew strong. Workshops opened to teach Ziffer children human painting. Concerts blended alien and human music. Human chefs made new dishes for Ziffer taste buds. The cultures melded deeper than any treaty could. On the last day, Adrian stood surrounded by both species' artworks. Applause filled the hall. Voices of all kinds joined together. They had shared their essences and found common ground. This was just the beginning, the foundation of lasting peace between humanity and Ziffer. Adrian knew the future held bright possibilities built on mutual respect. Adrian scanned the gallery. Art covered the walls. Music echoed between corners. Aliens and humans mingled, pointing, nodding, and talking in hushed voices. Someone gripped his arm sharply. He turned to see his security chief, her face tense. "We have a problem," she whispered. His heart raced as he followed her to a side room. The door closed, muffling the din. A hollow screen glowed dim red with an urgent message. His eyes darted across the words. A human hate group planned to kill him today for making peace with the aliens. They saw him as a traitor. The security chief stared at him, resolute. "We intercepted their communications. There's a shooter here now." Adrian breathed deep, the news settling like lead in his gut. He pulled up surveillance footage, scanning for the suspect. There, a figure, stiff and vigilant amid the crowd. He turned to the chief, jaw clenched. "Handle this quietly, no panic." She nodded and spoke into her comms. "Team ready, on my signal." Plainclothed personnel blended into the crowd, surrounding the suspect. In moments he was pinned, disarmed, and escorted out unseen. The room stayed alive with laughter and music, unaware. Adrian watched, pulse pounding. It was over. He glanced at the silent alert, then stepped back into the gallery. Voices and glasses greeted him. Faces turned with relief. He was unharmed. He approached an alien, voice low. "Your people need to know, not all humans want peace." The alien nodded, solemn. "We all have demons, Adrian." Adrian moved on, a calm presence. The plot had failed, but exposed lingering hatred. He was resolute. This would not stop their peace. He took the stage, and the room fell silent. "We can give in to fear or build something greater, together," he began, voice strong. His words resonated. "Some want us divided, fear change, cling to hate, we must be better." A collective breath. "This," he gestured around, "is our future. Unity, not division." Thunderous applause erupted. In that moment, Adrian stood as a symbol and a man. He had survived, undeterred. The attempt had galvanized, not weakened. Humanity's darkness was exposed, and he would confront it head-on. Adrian stood before the packed crowd in New Athens Hall. Faces filled every seat and corner below the curved metal ceiling. Workers, soldiers, teachers, parents, the colony's heart. He'd called this open meeting to address the whispers, anger, and fear. Adrian stepped to the bare podium, hands visible, face open. No barriers, no guards, just a man speaking. "We're at a crossroads," Adrian's voice echoed off the walls. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "The attempt on my life tried to silence me, but I won't hide or be quiet," he said. Adrian clicked a button. Holograms appeared, humans and Zephyr working together. Joint projects, shared research, even kids learning together. "This is reality, not the hateful lies." Adrian pointed to the images. He moved closer, boots thumping the floor. "Dialogue and education, our tools, not weapons." Adrian scanned the front rows, making eye contact. In back, a man stood angrily. "They've killed us! Taken from us!" Adrian nodded, acknowledging the man's pain. "Yes, we've suffered, but think what we've achieved together." The man wavered, then sat. "Education shows the benefits of cooperation. It challenges false narratives," Adrian continued, voice firm. He let his words settle. "I've seen Ziffer doctors save lives. Human engineers bring water to dying villages. Each fact a testament." Adrian clicked again. Testimonials played, voices of lived cooperation. "We're changing minds, anti-Zephyr actions are dropping." The images faded. Silence filled the hall. "Transparency brings trust. Trust builds peace. Let's not slide backwards into fear. Heads nodded, faces shifted from skeptical to curious, even hopeful. The meeting ended quietly. People stood in groups talking openly, pondering Adrian's words. Outside, the suns dipped below the horizon. The colony buzzed with the night shift. In classrooms, students studied histories and languages, both human and Zephyr. Teachers explained nuances, answered questions, guiding curious minds. In the commons, a chef and nutritionist unveiled a joint food venture combining flavors and techniques. Laughter rang out from tasting. In the barracks, soldiers watched operations with Zephyr allies, studying strategies. In the command center, officers planned joint exercises, voices determined. Adrian watched unseen. He smiled. Transparency and education were the future's foundation. He'd laid the first stone. Adrian looked at the hologram floating over the table. It showed the broker's newest black market, selling Earth and Zephyr history to the highest bidder. Each stolen piece tore identity from societies. "Not this time," Adrian said, tapping the biggest stash. "We take back what's ours." The team stood ready, humans and Zephyr handpicked for unity, their faces hardened by loss, but willing to risk more. They watched the network of illegal trades and secret stashes. "Sync up," Adrian ordered sharply. Heads bent over screens, fingers swiping to sync data. This was no drill. A heist with purpose. Retrieve history. Sarah approached with a floor plan showing twisting halls and rooms. "We go silent until breach, fast and quiet after. In, secure artifacts, out." Adrian nodded once. "One shot, no mistakes." Their eyes met, understanding the stakes. Boots echoed as the team boarded the stealth ship. Black hull blended into space. Quiet Zephyr tech masked life signs and emissions. The tense flight slipped past patrols unseen. Breaths hung in air, focus sharp. A ghost through the galaxy. Smooth docking, too smooth. Metallic hiss greeted the silent stream of precision as they exited. Eyes scanned for traps, hands ready. Relics close, soon unprotected by walls. They found the cold, still room holding cases in dim light, ancient Earth texts beside Zephyr statues that had watched generations. Steady hands moved artifacts into secure containers. Each piece told a story, each story a piece of peace Adrian fought to preserve. Sarah kept watch, gaze cutting through dim Guardian while history reclaimed. "Movement. Company coming your way," comms whispered. Adrian signaled. Controlled urgency filled the room. Cases snapped shut. Cargo secured. Footsteps neared. The team lined up, barrier between relics and those who'd sell them. Door burst open. Intruders found only gun barrels, unmoving. Adrian's calm voice. "Not one more step." Smugglers hesitated, eyed containers, steadfast faces. They'd lost. Soon smugglers bound, artifacts safe. Shared exhale, mission done. On Ceres, unveiled relics brought humans and Zephyr together. Past returned, threads of culture restored, ties strengthening. Adrian watched Task Force beside him, the heist a victory over greed and for unity. Proof the tide of war could recede, peace a shared, precious thing, more than a commander or symbol, guardian of fragile, resilient hope. Hope etched into united essence. Adrian looked at the star map on the bridge of the Terran Vengeance. The swirl of planets and stars showed a new, unclaimed system. It had lots of resources, untouched and ready for both humans and Zephyrs to use together. He moved his hand over the spinning hologram. A new planet glowed. "This planet can power us for the next 100 years. We can build and grow together." The Zephyr officer next to Adrian leaned in close to see the new planet better. Its big eyes shined from the glowing map. The idea of working together interested the Zephyr. "A shared colony," it said into its translator. "This would help both our economies and bring more peace." Adrian turned and looked into the Zephyr's eyes. "Yes, it's not just the resources. It shows we can work side by side, build homes and jobs, make life better for all." The humans and Zephyrs on the bridge nodded. They all agreed this was a good plan. A human lieutenant had an idea. "We should tell the council right away. We could start in a year if we move fast. Adrian smiled a little. Speed is good, but we'll make careful plans first. Set agreements. This is the start of our future together. The Zephyr officer reached out its long, thin hand. Adrian shook it firmly. Together, then, the Zephyr said. Together, Adrian agreed. The Terran Vengeance's command room buzzed with activity. Zephyr techs worked with human engineers. Their screens showed maps, charts, timelines. Every piece of data moved their goal forward. In the meeting room, the mood was excited. Humans and Zephyrs filled the seats around a long metal table. Adrian's plan lay in the middle for all to see. Talking died down as Adrian spoke clearly. We have a special chance here. This new system is open to us both. It wasn't just a plan, it showed a shared future. Adrian kept talking. Think of colonies where our young can play together, use both human drive and Zephyr strength. The tall Zephyr ambassador stood up. Your vision is bold, Commander. We're with you. Cheers burst out. This was a new start after centuries apart. They ended with handshakes and backslaps. The two species mingled as friends. On the survey ships, human scouts worked with Zephyr guides. They scanned the asteroids and planets of the new system. The asteroids had metals and ice to mine. The planets had lakes and rivers under their skies. All had resources for life and growth. The ships landed on rocky ground and churned up dust. Crews came out with equipment. They checked every rock and soil sample. All the data helped plan the future colonies. More ships brought eager colonists and building materials. They were ready to break ground and start a new life together. In the common areas, humans and Zephyrs traded stories of home. They laughed together and shared dreams. They made new dishes from both worlds and ate with joy. On the bridge, Adrian watched a simulation of the first colony. Domes and greenhouses rose from the dirt. Machines worked the fields while humans and Zephyrs walked together. This is what we strive for, Adrian said out loud. Not to rule, but to build, create, and live in peace. The crew worked hard with purpose. Their calculations would help the dream come true. Ships full of supplies and colonists set course for the new system. They would be the first to start this life built on trust. Their engines roared as they left known space. Their future shined in the stars ahead. A future of growth and plenty through united effort. Adrian watched them go from the command deck. We'll make this work for all of us, he promised. Together, the human Zephyr force sailed towards their new chapter. Their hearts were full, ready to shape a galaxy of peace. Adrian stared at the three Drath across the table. Their dark eyes shined in the light. Their scaled skin glittered metallic as they shifted in their seats. The room was quiet, except for the ship's engines. He looked at the treaty on the tablet. He knew every word. Each part meant peace or war. The Drath wanted the system as their old home, though they left no signs of living there. Adrian cleared his throat. The sound cut through the silence. We know your claim, he said evenly, but the system has resources we all need. There must be a way to share. The lead Drath leaned forward. Its sharp teeth lined its jaw. It spoke in a deep rumble translated by the device. Sharing means equals. Drath do not share power. Adrian met its gaze straight on. He said, Yet here we speak as equals. Both our people could lose much without compromise. Let's find common ground. Hours passed. The talk was like chess, each seeking an edge. Adrian used every tactic and lesson he knew from peace with the Zephyr. He suggested joint mining, shared labs, cultural exchanges. He offered schools, aid, and human persistence against the universe's harshness. At each offer, the Drath whispered, the hisses echoing in the small room. Adrian waited patiently through the uncertainty. His silent team showed united resolve. The Drath returned. We see your conviction, the lead one said, and the potential in your offers. The Drath will consider this treaty. Adrian exhaled slowly. He nodded calmly. The long talks had worked. This was more than words on a tablet. It was a chance for peace where conflict had ruled. Thank you, he replied. Our futures depend on the bridges we build today. As the towering Drath left, Adrian stood too. They shook hands, an awkward but sincere gesture between species. When the Drath left the room, the tension vanished. The team erupted in quiet cheers, cautiously hopeful. Adrian watched them, their joy reflecting hope's determination. But his eyes were on the stars beyond the window, where the new system waited. Its fate now rested on the threads of diplomacy. Work remained, but the treaty's foundation was laid, shaping a corner of the galaxy. The alert buzzed through Adrian's comm, a sharp sting like ice on his spine. He scanned the busy headquarters atrium, danger lurking beneath the bustle. His team fanned out, subtly vigilant, eyes swept and ears tuned for threats. "South wing clear, sir," his sergeant whispered in his earpiece. Adrian nodded, patrolling on. Protocol said lockdown search, but he would not hide. His steps echoed the polished floor. Steady, resolute rhythm, not retreat. "Movement in 7A, sir, heading to intercept." Tense but controlled voice. "Go, backup coming," Adrian replied, veering there. Moments stretched tight. The team converged, swift, precise. A shadowy figure recoiled, exposed. Eyes wide, blade gripped tight. "Drop it!" Steel command, absolute. The figure hesitated. Blade glinted. Then compliance. Metal clattered to the floor. Cuffs clicked on the would-be assassin. Defiance wilting as agents whisked the Drath away. Efficient, clean, no alarm, no fear. Adrian wouldn't allow it. In his quarters, the faint tremor in his hand hinted at what had happened. He steadied his breathing, turned to his security chief. "Triple checks, no exceptions. Get me those feeds, eyes everywhere," Adrian commanded, jaw set with resolve. "The Drath?" she asked, posture rigid, eyes hard. "Inform their ambassadors. We talk. Find the source, the motive. This ends now." Rumors of Adrian's refusal to cower spread, not bravado. His stern look met each camera, each eye, unwavering. He addressed the coalition openly the next day. No screens, no barricades. The sky witnessed his words. "One's actions don't define the many. Our treaty stands, united by something stronger than fear, principles." The crowd breathed deep. His defiance touched hearts, heads high, fists tight in solidarity. Humanity stood as one, facing darkness with convictions light. Stepping down, his team shielded subtly, but he walked among the people. One of them, greeting Zephyr and Human, shaking hands, trading nods, his message clear. He was Adrian, who'd stared into the abyss and declared humanity would never blink first. Adrian stood silent in the command room. The offer from the Zephyr sat on the table in front of him, the data pad glowing blue in the dark room. He looked at the alien, Talurek, its silver scales and graceful form, waiting patiently across from him. The technology they offered could change everything for humanity. A leap across the stars. Adrian knew the gravity of this gift. "What you've offered goes beyond what we've dreamed," Adrian finally spoke. "But with power comes responsibility. A warning, not just a cliché." Around the room, the crew exchanged looks, some with thrill in their eyes, others clouded with doubt. Adrian picked up the datapad. Strange engines danced across the display. These could take us to new stars. But what does it mean for humanity to accept this gift? Talrek dipped its head in respect. "Commander, your leadership inspires. This offer is more than a transaction. It is an extended hand, a new phase of our alliance." Adrian searched its face, no deceit that he could see. "We built our space with sweat and steel," he said, tapping the pad. "What happens when we rely on your strength instead?" The crew listened in silence. Each had fought alongside him. Each knew what their own grit had achieved. Talrek shimmered as it shifted. "Consider this. Cooperation brought us here. Human determination and Zephyr grace. Sharing strength does not show weakness. It marks a new unity." A young engineer broke in, eyes alight. "Think of the lives we could touch with these engines. Our reach could extend beyond war." Adrian turned to her, saw his old passion reflected back. "But at what cost? The easy path seduces. Can we afford the price?" The room stirred with the weight of their journey. The engines meant progress, but also a choice. Adrian set down the pad. His gaze swept the conflicted crew. "We will not rush blindly forward," he declared. "We'll integrate this slowly, keep our core intact." He looked at Talrek. We accept, but stay self-reliant. A partnership, not dependency. Approval rippled through the crew, pride swelling in their chests. Talrek bowed deeply, the gesture speaking volumes. Agreed, Commander. A partnership it shall be. The datapad blinked silently. Humanity stood on the cusp of a new era, guided by the stars yet to come. The lab was crazy busy. Human and Ziffer scientists rushed around a new humming engine. Adrian stood back with arms folded, watching every move. Cables were all over, connecting things to the engine's core. "Status!" Adrian called out over the noise. "Ready, Commander. Capacitors fully charged for startup," a technician said fast, fingers on his holograms. Adrian nodded. He looked to his partner, Solara, the Ziffer. Her alien hands worked their controls. "Solara, is the power matrix stable?" he asked. They needed stability for the engine and their shared future. Solara chirped yes. A soft glow came from the engine. This was it. Here they would test this thing that could change everything. Adrian watched the techs back off. Then silence, tense and waiting. Adrian nodded. The main tech started the sequence. The engine came alive with a low buzz that grew loud with power. Console lights blinked green. A hologram showed good numbers. No one breathed. 97% efficient. Stable, Adrian, said the technician, clearly relieved. Rare for him, Adrian smiled. More than a success here, this kept a promise made, secured a future shared. Excellent work. Get these specs sent to every colony before the day's done, he said. Excited chatter bounced around as his words sank in. No one power would control this tech. It would be a shared boost, evening the playing field. Adrian went to the engine, putting a hand on the cool metal. This machine meant open possibilities for all. Crucial, it would weave through human spaces, binding them in strength and unity. "Commander, this is unprecedented. Sending this out so wide," said a Ziffer, uncertain. "It's the right call," Adrian replied, looking him in the eye. "Strength shared is strength gained. That's how we make the future fair and balanced for all." The Ziffer nodded. The sounds of progress filled the room as the teams worked, the once alien engine now a bridge between species. Adrian left the humming lab with a last look back. Ziffer and human had created something today. He would see it spread and take root among the stars. This was the future, together, even-handed, unstoppable. Adrian stood in the control room and watched the video feed of the ship's engine igniting. The dull roar sent vibrations through his boots. The new propulsion tech hummed with a steady rhythm. Green lights on the console blinked calmly, showing the launch went well. In the corner, engineers nodded at each other and gave low fives. Their murmurs blended with the soft hum of machines and occasional beeps from the monitors. Adrian turned from the screen and looked around the room. The engineers all had the same mix of relief and excitement that comes with success after long nights of work. The Admiral approached Adrian with purposeful steps. "Commander," she said in a low voice, "HQ just sent word. They want you to command the first mission into Andromeda with the new drives. A chance to set up a forward base." Adrian glanced back at the screen. The ship was now a small light, heading to another galaxy. The offer hung before him like a key to unlock the universe's doors. Uncharted space, vast mystery that humanity had only dreamt of seeing. But his mind went back to the peace summits, clenched fists during talks, late-night strategy sessions over coffee. Peace was a fragile tapestry he had helped weave. Could he leave, with so much at stake? He turned to Singh, waiting for his reply. His eyes went to the dedicated engineers in the room. Each one showed what people could do together. "Admiral, I'm honored, but I need time," Adrian said, his voice heavy with the gravity of the decision. "Things here are fragile. They need careful attention." Singh nodded understandingly. 48 hours, Commander. HQ needs your answer then." Adrian thanked her with a tight smile and turned back to the window. Beyond the glass, stars glittered against the black void, a dance of light and shadow that always called to him. The explorer in him longed to map those skies, but duty tethered him here. He thought of the joint missions, close calls, hands shaken, human and alien, trust built on mutual respect. Could he leave with so much at stake? He pondered the ships departing for distant galaxies, the lives that would flourish with these opportunities. He had guided many to safe harbors. Could he now guide them to new worlds? The room's silence hung heavy as he weighed his options, one path leading into diplomacy, the other into the abyss of space. He would need to decide soon. For now, he just watched the departing ships, trailblazers on humanity's next great leap. His heart pulled to the unknown, but duty held the reins. Adrian stood at the frontier of possibility and the edge of duty, his choice still adrift among the stars.